Well, my name's Louise Savage. Hello and welcome to my channel if it's the first time you visited. If not, welcome back. So it's a very quick wrap up this month because I've been very busy reading the shortlisted books for the Booker Prize. And I don't really want to talk about those right now because I'm going to be doing that a little bit closer to the revelation of the winner. So today I just talk about the 4 other books that I've read this month. Quite an interesting group of books I've been sort of reading by whim, which I really enjoy. So the first one is The Lost Children Archive by Valeria Luiselli. Now this book was shortlisted or longlisted for the Women's Prize some years ago, and I did read some of it then. I read probably about half of it. Got a bit bogged down and abandoned it because obviously I'd got lots of other ones to read, and I'm so glad I returned to it. One of the reasons I returned to it was because it was one of Obama's picks. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, one of his favourite books of the year, so that sort of recommended it to me. And this time round I found it utterly fascinating. So basically it's an elegy really to all the thousands of children who are forced to cross America on the top of trains, really dangerous journey, and walk across the desert because they're separated from their parents at the Mexican border. And the story is about a family of 4 who are making a journey to try and find Apacheria. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but it's the lost territory of the Apache tribe. But they also have in their car boxes and boxes of archives. So they leave New York, they set out on this adventure, and it's narrated in part by the mother, in part by the son, and the children in the family end up having their own adventure as well. It's just, I just found it endlessly fascinating, and the tensions as well. The marriage is on the rocks. In fact, it's not going to survive. You know that very early on, and so that the fact that they're traveling in this car, and a lot of the novel is spent in this car with them, and that whole sort of claustrophobia and tension, I found fascinating. There's a real intellect behind this novel. It's very, I would say, the tone of it is quite academic, and all these boxes of archives, sometimes the story is told through photographs, sometimes it's told through newspaper cuttings, other forms of documentation. So the structure of it is very interesting too. So I wholeheartedly recommend this, and it just shows you, doesn't it, that sometimes you just pick up a book at the wrong time or you're in the wrong place. But I think this is going to become a firm sort of favourite of mine. There we go. Second up, I've always been a really big fan, I don't know if you can see that, of Alan Coren's writing, and this is a book of sort of, I don't know what you'd call them, essays. I think he used to write for one of the newspapers, possibly the Telegraph, I don't know. I just, some of his pieces that I've read in the past have really enjoyed, really made me laugh a lot. He's very good at doing parodies on the style of the Bible or ancient myths or current, events in politics. This was written, I think, probably in the 70s. And I just found it really dated. I mean, there were 1 or 2 that made me laugh out loud, so it was worth reading for that reason. But, I don't think it's get my words out. I don't think it's passed the test of time very well. So yeah, I felt quite uncomfortable reading some bits because of the sexism and the sort of attitude to women's bodies, etc. And I know it was all part of the culture at the time, but I suppose because that's when I was growing up, didn't really want to be reminded of it. So yeah, I wouldn't rush out to read this at all. There we go. Bye, Alan. And then I read Alison Moore's The Retreat, which Savage Reads recommended to me quite a while ago, and I loved this. This is a book that not a lot happens. It's one of those stories where the plot is very thin, but the interaction between the characters is excruciating. I mean, it's a brilliant read because you just feel so very, very uncomfortable all the way through. And also there's a kind of underlying tension and underlying sort of grimness at the back of it, as well as flashes of humour. So the story is about a woman called Sandra who has decided to go on an artist's retreat. She's always been fascinated by a film star called Valerie Swanson, who was a Hollywood film star. And she knows this place where there's an island where Valerie Swanson once lived. She had quite a grand house there. And so Sandra books herself on this artistic retreat in the hope that I think she assumes she's possibly going to be staying in Valerie's home or what have you, or be able to go and see it. And of course, it's not quite right, because actually it's not the right island, but that becomes a very important part of the story. And from the minute she gets there, Sandra just doesn't fit in with any of the other people on the retreat, and in fact is treated, you might say, rather appallingly, but then equally you might say that Sandra doesn't necessarily bend over backwards to try and socialise with them either. So it's a book about, for me, it was all about social awkwardness, but also about frustrated ambition. Day after day after day, she goes out and tries to paint and produce pictures, and she's never satisfied with what she turns out. So, it's hard not to empathise with her for that reason. So, yeah, I found it very interesting, and the ending is extremely intriguing. It does not disappoint. Beautifully written too. So I really recommend Alison Moore's The Retreat. And finally, delight. There we go. I think you can see that. Bernadine Evaristo's Mr. Loverman, which I've had in my possession for a long time. Love the cover. Love the jaunty sort of hat, which belongs to, I assume, Barry, or it could be Morris, who is the protagonist in the novel. And I've read a few of Bernadine's books, but this one I've been sort of leaving until I needed something to really sort of get absorbed in, and it didn't disappoint me at all. I absolutely loved it. It's a story that's told with such warmth. It's a story of an Antiguan man and his friend Morris, who actually have been lovers since they were very, very young in Antigua. Both of them end up in Britain. Both of them obviously have to, well, I say obviously, but because of the mores of the time and because of the attitudes, not just in our culture, but also in the culture of Afro-Caribbeans, they weren't able to be honest and open about their relationship. Both of them marry. It focuses mainly on Barry, and he's married to Carmel, who knows that he's cheating, assumes, of course, that he's cheating with a woman. And the characters are just they just ooze warmth and realism, and Barry is so flawed in many, many ways, but also very, very lovable too. And if you want a sort of really warm, tingly, lovely reading experience, then I definitely recommend it. For me, it was incredibly poignant too, because a lot of Barry's flaws are to do with the fact that he can't be himself. And I find it, I mean, I'm heterosexual, always have been, probably always will be, I don't know. But I just find it so shocking that in this day and age, even, in the past few decades, it's been so difficult for people to be themselves. It shouldn't even be up for discussion, in my view. Your sexuality is your own business. And, the pain of not being able to walk down the street together and hold hands, or not being able to hug in public, or, not being able to tell people you love that you love someone else in that way, I think is beautifully captured in this novel. It's a very important book, I think, from that point of view. And just a sort of, it's a diatribe against prejudice without having the tone of a diatribe. It's that clever, but then Bernadine Evaristo is stunningly clever in the way she approaches these things. So I thoroughly enjoyed this, and it really moved me. I loved Barry's relationship with his grandson. That was really wonderful to behold, because the relationship changes and fluctuates quite dramatically. No, let's say seesaws during the course of the novel. So there you go. That's the 4 books that I have read in addition to most of the shortlist. I say most of, I've got 2 to go for the Booker Prize, and I really look forward to talking to you about that very soon. Take care. Bye.